What's going on, you guys? My name's Taani, and welcome to Top 5 Unknowns, 5 Unsolved Mysteries with Anonymous Tips. Number 5. In 1976, Tracy Patient was just 13 years old, living at home with her family in New Zealand. In mid-January, she made plans to spend the day at her close friend's house, eventually heading home around 9:30 p.m., though she never made it back. Just a day later, her body was discovered in a series of bushes, and she'd been strangled with her own pantyhose. Months went by, and little evidence was ever found tying anyone to Tracy's passing. Though after about 2 months, an anonymous tip came into a helpline, with the individual stating that she'd seen Tracy get into a brown car with a man in a brown suit on the night of her disappearance. No one was ever able to identify who this anonymous caller was, but before long, an even stranger call came in. When Tracy's body was discovered, her parents noted that one of her rings was missing. The family then provided a sketch of this ring to the police. In November of 1977, over a year and a half after Tracy's passing, an anonymous male caller phoned in and informed investigators that Tracy's ring could be found in a trash can outside of a pharmacy, then providing the address to this pharmacy. As a shock to police, the tip was actually true, and Tracy's ring was found. Though the location of the ring wasn't the only information he provided about Tracy's case. He also offered officers a number that was tied to her case as well, the number being 126040. He refused to explain why this number was relevant to Tracy's disappearance and said he would call back at a later time to explain, though he never did. To this day, police have never heard from this man again, and Tracy's case remains unsolved. Number 4. On New Year's Eve in 2002, Vancouver police received a very strange letter in the mail regarding a prostitute who went missing earlier that year, asking why her name was never in the news and why her case was never publicized. The writer of this letter failed to recall the woman's name, but in a shocking turn of events, informed police that he'd been the person who took her life. The writer then added that this was not intentional, and even included a sincere apology to her family. He then asked police to publicize her case in a local newspaper, and also asked that his letter written to her family be placed in the article. Police were a bit confused at first, but eventually determined that the woman in question must have been Danielle LaRue, a 24-year-old who'd worked as a prostitute in Vancouver for many years. Danielle was known to have been the victim of an extremely troubled life, and had been involved with drugs for quite some time. She eventually ran away from home when she was just a teenager and began her life as a prostitute. As the letter stated, she eventually vanished in 2002, though her body has never been found. Police did, however, expect foul play. At the end of the letter, the writer mentioned that he regularly brought flowers to Danielle's grave, though he never mentioned where the supposed grave may be, as she obviously never received a proper burial. Police then pleaded with the anonymous writer to come forward, though he never did. To this day, Danielle LaRue is still technically a missing person. Number 3. In July of 2005, a woman was taking her dog for a walk in Ontario, when the dog began to act up around a particular series of bushes, seeming to be insisting that its owner take a look into them. The woman eventually checked them out and found the body of a newborn infant. The baby had been wrapped in a towel, and upon further investigation, it was determined that he was likely healthy upon birth. Though once a series of tests were performed, investigators found out that the child had been bludgeoned in the head. Just a day later, a neighbor nearby the bushes where the child was found reported finding an unidentified bloody item near his home. This turned out to be the infant's placenta, meaning that this child likely only lived a handful of minutes, possibly even seconds, before his life ended. No identification was ever found revealing who the child's parents were, though police decided to name him Baby Parker as he was found on Parkside Drive. About 1 week after Parker's discovery, police received an anonymous tip in the mail from a woman who claimed to have been pregnant when she was at a party down the road from Parkside Drive. At this party, she went into labor. One of her friends then helped her down the street, hoping to make it to a hospital, though she ended up giving birth on the sidewalk late into the night. The friend then helped her deliver the child, but insisted that it was not alive, then tossing the child into the bushes. She further stated that no one in her life knew she was pregnant, not even the child's father, stating, "I'm scared and lonely." She promised to publicly come forward later on, but never did. The woman's story, as well as the letter's authenticity, have never been confirmed, though police tend to believe this unknown writer. However, to this day, Baby Parker's mother remains unknown. Number 2. In May of 1994, a hotline dedicated to receiving tips of missing children received an extremely concerning call regarding 3 missing girls. The caller gave the names of these girls and stated that they were each being held captive as part of a prostitution ring in Austin, Texas. Though what made this tip extremely odd is that each of these girls were from completely different states and disappeared at completely different times. meaning that this unidentified caller was likely somehow personally involved in the prostitution operation. The girls in question were 14-year-old Beth Miller, 17-year-old Tracy Crow, and 20-year-old Tiffany Sessions. Up until now, no one had any suspicion that these cases were related in any way. The caller then claimed to have had information about the girls' controller, who went by the name Thomas Stewart, adding that the girls were oftentimes transported together in either a white or blue van. This call resulted in police of each of the girls' states looking into Thomas, but they were unable to find anyone who matched his description. By February of 2014, police had almost completely written this call off as a hoax, as they found enough evidence to determine that one of the girls had likely lost her life to a man named Paul Rowells, though Paul had passed away in prison a year prior to this, so he could never be properly questioned. To this day, while police don't necessarily believe this unknown caller's story, the disappearances of all three of these girls remain unsolved. Number 1. Taani Leigh Sharples was a 29-year-old woman from Pennsylvania who decided to go to a nightclub with a friend of hers named Crystal Johns in late 2009. At this time, Taani was known to have been taking medication for bipolar disorder and wasn't supposed to be drinking any amount of alcohol. However, she disregarded her doctor's orders and drank anyway. Taani and Crystal then headed to the party a short distance down the road. This party was said to have been hosted by a former 76ers basketball player. Taani remained at this party until she fell into an argument with another guest and decided to leave. However, Crystal refused to let her do so, insisting that she was far too drunk to drive. Though Taani refused to listen and drove anyway, with Crystal in the car with her. The two drove a few blocks before getting into an argument, at which time Taani pulled over and forced Crystal out of the car. Taani then drove away, never to be seen again. Police then searched for Taani's car in the following days, but found no signs of her, no signs of the car or any sort of a crash. However, a private investigator who'd been hired to handle Taani's case received an anonymous letter stating that Taani had passed away during an altercation with a police officer in New Jersey, and that her disappearance was being covered up by the police force. The writer of this letter claimed to have been paid $5,000 in order to dispose of Taani's car, and even provided the correct VIN number for her vehicle. To even further add fuel to this story, it was noted that just 2 weeks after her disappearance, a license plate reader in New Jersey registered a license plate matching Taani's. The story mentioned in the letter has never been confirmed, and its author has never been found. Though neither has Taani, which really makes you wonder if this unknown writer was genuinely telling the truth.
Where is she at this point? I just need to know.
August 22, 2009, Taani Leigh Sharples, a 29-year-old single mother, went out with a friend for what was supposed to be a night of fun.
She said that night to me and my husband, "Do you guys mind if I go out? Can Dahlia stay here? I haven't been out in 2 years."
August 23rd, Sharples was reported missing.
DNA forms. You live and your whole thing is in just one file.
For her to call that many times made me feel like something was wrong, so I called her as soon as I woke up that morning.
That was one of the original pictures I was given.
According to Crystal, Taani kind of went out of control.
Then Crystal and Taani got into a disagreement of their own.
Taani got into an argument with Miss Johns, and Miss Johns was then thrown out of the vehicle.
Police say that's the last time Sharples was seen.
My granddaughter came into my bedroom around 4 o'clock and she said, "I can't sleep. Mommy texted me, she'll be home soon."
And that's the last time anyone heard from her.
And said, "Your mom's missing, hon, but we'll find her." And she started crying. And I said, "Don't worry, we'll find her."
And by nighttime, when we heard nothing, then at that point I went to the West Brandywine Township Police Department and filed a missing persons report.
The police subpoenaed her credit records, her bank statements, her phone statements, and pinged her cell phone.
We did find out that the phone stopped working or was turned off soon after she had dropped Miss Johns off. These are all the hits that I've gone through and verified that they're not Taani Sharples.
Police say for several weeks there were multiple sightings of Taani. One of her license plates.
See, it's pretty thick. A couple of sightings were in Montgomery County. A couple of sightings were in Philadelphia. We had what was called an automatic license plate reader read numerics of her license plate in Camden.
The biggest cluster has been in Camden.
Over the years, the private detective on the case says there have been more sightings in those areas and in Lancaster, where she worked at Lancaster General as a nurse. Law says she's going to find answers for this family.
If it's the last breath I take, that's what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing to find her.
I know for a fact somebody knows something. What happened, I really don't care. I just need her to be found to bring us peace and closure.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.